I'm in the process of cleaning my room, so it's kind of a total wreck now. I mean, you can only see like a little bit, but even that much is a wreck. Guess I could fix my... Yeah, fuck it, I don't care. Well, today I'm going to review House of Gucci. In it, Lady Gaga and Adam Driver play the two main characters, and Adam Driver plays a descendant of the Gucci family, the fashion designers or whatever they are. And Lady Gaga plays his wife, or she becomes his wife, because at first she just like meets him, and he's like this incredibly awkward guy. And they meet at like a party, and she's like kind of really sweet at first and everything. And he's like really awkward and shy and clumsy. He's like the stereotypical nice guy in a romantic comedy from the 90s, I guess. Just that he's really awkward at first, but she's kind of aggressive, I guess, because she like makes all the first moves pretty much in their relationship. And he introduces her to his family, I guess, and then, but they like want to cut him out of the will or something because he's marrying her, and she's like, she's just after your money. He's like, no, you don't know her like I do. And at that point, she seems really sweet, actually, and it's like, yeah, she's, go for it. And he like kind of cuts himself out of the will, just like, no, I'm gonna follow my heart, and I don't need your fortune or anything. But he starts working for her dad, because she's also rich, or she's also from a really rich family of like a trucking industry or something. And the Gucci's look down on that too. It's not good enough for them. You know, trucking's not fashion industry or whatever the hell the Gucci industry does. But then Lady Gaga kind of like cons her way back into his family because she wants their fortune for some reason. And she almost gets the 50% of the fortune that's going to Adam Driver. Like, she always convinced him to get written back in the will, but he doesn't sign it before he dies. So then she forges his signature, and then Adam Driver she and Adam Driver get the 50%. And then as the movie continues, Adam Driver kind of turns into this huge, raging asshole. He's no longer the humble, awkward guy, and just kind of a jerk. But she's even worse, basically. And I mean, they just turn into these awful, awful people. And she, like, sets up the rest of his family so that they get caught by the police and stuff, and then also all the fortune ends up going to him. And then it ends with her hiring hitmen, and they kill him. That's the movie. And I guess it's a true story. Oh, but then she's finally caught and goes to prison for a conspiracy to commit murder. Well, the first 20 minutes of this movie, I was actually fairly interested in that. It was like just very simple because it was just about these two people kind of meeting each other, and he's super awkward, but she like obviously wants him. But then it starts turning out like all this horrible stuff about each other. It's like, oh, this seems kind of sweet. It's like, oh no, actually they're horrible people. And I feel like if what happened after that, I feel like it could have been implemented better in a lot of different ways. And it's like one of those movies that it's like so indecisive about what it's trying to be that as I'm watching it anyway, all I can think about is what it could have been. Like at first I thought it was just kind of like a romantic drama, and that was fine. You know, it had like some lighthearted moments, almost to the point of being a comedy and stuff. And like both of the characters, the Lady Gaga and Adam Driver played, seemed fairly realistic and like believable people all around. And after that, for a bit, I thought it was going to be a satire after that, because it kind of felt like it was turning into a satire. And there's some parts that are like really funny in a satirical way, you know, like it's like people who don't realize that they're a joke, you know, and that's part of the movie, and I would say that's part of the movie's charm. But it doesn't go enough into it. It's just like moments here and there that just come off as funny. And then because of that, I'm not even sure if they were done on purpose in that way. But it feels like it could have been a really good satire if they just leaned in that really hard instead of just kind of softly brushing against it here and there. I also thought it could have been a good like rise and fall movie. I don't know what you would call that, like Barry Lyndon or Scarface, you know, where it's all about the rise to power and then fall because of power, basically. Like the power corrupts you and you become awful, and eventually it kills you type of thing. Like, and I feel like maybe that's what Ridley Scott, who directed this, was going for. ultimately, like kind of a rise and fall kind of story, but it's just so boring most of the time. It's like advertised that there's going to be a murder in it, so I thought it was going to be like some kind of crime drama type of thing. I guess it was that, but the murder didn't happen until the last like 10 minutes of the movie, so it's just, so by the time it gets there, it's like they have to win me back, and I don't think they managed to do that. And it's only like the last 10 minutes of the movie. It's like if that had happened within like the first hour of the movie, and then like instead of being like 2 years later and now they're in court and here's the end, they could have had like this whole movie just about that, and that I think would have been more interesting than what we were given, because this movie is just filler. It's constant filler. I mean, like each scene felt like it was like twice as long as it needed to be, and like it could have just been an interesting drama again, like with the what is this movie, what could it have been, you know? Because what this movie is, as far as I can tell, is it's about a half-hour short film stretched out for 2.5 hours. Because that's what it feels like. Like there's not nearly enough plot to really hold it up. Or maybe like an hour short film. I'm not giving it enough credit, because it is like 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes I was on board, but then it has this tonal shift, and that tone it shifts to is boring as hell. Boring is not an emotion. It just feels like just an Oscar bait movie. Like it's filled with a lot of stars, with lots of costumes and whatever, but not a lot of substance. A lot of stars, not a lot of substance. And I think it was only nominated for Best Costume Design, and I don't even think it deserves that, personally. Best Costume and Makeup. And I think it's just like, oh, it's a period piece, you know, you have to find things that fit the period. But it just feels like basically everyone's just chewing the scenery almost the entire time, except for the first 20 minutes and the last 10, and everything else is just filler in between. 2 hours of filler. That's my ultimate review. Or that'd be the headline if this were in the newspaper or something. House of Gucci, 2 hours of filler. As a rating, let me just think, like, did I like anything about it, really? I mean, the half hour, like, pulled me in, but then it completely failed after that, pretty much. I would say the last 10 minutes, I was interested again, just because, like, oh, so this guy's died on screen. Something's actually happening in this movie. Because everything else, it's just like long, drawn-out conversations between every character. And I mean, I'm fine with movies like that, but it was a movie that like more or less advertised itself as like being this crime thriller. And what we ended up with was something that was trying to be Scarface, but took out all the things that made Scarface interesting, basically. And I just felt that it was like brushing up against these themes that were far more interesting than the movie itself, like how it was sometimes a satire, sometimes some kind of political discourse on today's selfish society, but like it doesn't succeed. It doesn't lean hard enough into any of these things. So like by the end, I just feel like I was watching little more than like a soap opera or something like that for the last 2.5 hours. I actually kind of had the feel of a soap opera now I'm thinking about it. Not that I've ever really seen a soap opera. Just overly melodramatic and not enough story for how melodramatic it was. There wasn't enough substance to really like make this a memorable experience in my mind, and I probably wouldn't recommend this to anyone. It was just boring. The cinematography was pretty good, and sometimes it was pretty funny, but never enough to like carry any of it. You know, the humor did not carry this movie, but it could have, and that's the thing that like kind of bugged me. Well, just like anything else in this movie, because it didn't like settle on a genre. Really, my brain just started assigning genres to it almost. But it felt like it could have been a satire. It really did. If they had just leaned into that harder, or leaned into anything harder, it could have been anything. It could have been something memorable. Instead, it's completely forgettable. Oh yeah, I have to give it a rating. Oh yeah, score. Trying to think if there's anything I really felt was a positive. I mean, just because I liked the first 20 minutes and the last 10 were at least interesting because things were happening, I'd still probably say the movie failed overall. I mean, just because parts of it were interesting doesn't mean those parts succeeded when everything else is a failure. I'd probably give it a 1, truthfully. And the only reason I'm not giving it a 0 is because the cinematography was all right and the set design and stuff like that did stand out to me. You can't make a movie with set design. Sets don't carry a movie. So overall, kind of a disappointment. It's even more disappointing because I could like see the good movie underneath. The good movie that could have been. If they'd only tried a bit harder. That's almost the bigger tragedy, you know. Or a bad movie that's made because the filmmaker is incompetent. You can usually tell that. It's like, they just didn't know better, you know. That's more forgivable. But here, it's like they obviously knew what they were doing. they just didn't do that. I'll give this a 1 out of 10, and I can't think of any reason to raise it any higher than that. That's the rating. So please like and subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Reviewing some other horrible movie, probably.